Welcome to IdeaGen TV. Today we are thrilled to have with us two incredible leaders from the United Way, U.S. President, United Way, Suzanne McCormick. Suzanne, welcome.
Thanks, George. I'm so glad to be here. And also, I'm really thrilled that my teammate, Alicia Lara, who is our Senior Vice President of Impact, is also joining us.
Welcome, Alicia. This is so great to have both of you on IdeaGen TV today. It's one of those moments in time, right? And Alicia, I understand your title, while it says impact, it could be also intergalactic impact, because you're having such a profound impact on the world with all of the work that you all are doing at the United Way. And certainly leading up impact is in the title. You're changing the world. And so can I ask you, Suzanne, first, and then Alicia, tell our global audience, please, a little bit about yourselves, as well as your roles and responsibilities at the United Way.
I serve as the U.S. President, which means my job is to help support our network of local United Ways across the United States. We have United Ways around the world, and we have an international president who supports our international United Way members. But my job is really to help our local United Ways who are in communities in 95% of the country, to help them do the best job they can in helping mobilize the caring power of communities to improve lives. It's a complex job. Our local United Ways come in all shapes and sizes, and so trying to figure out how to help them do the best job depends on what size they are and what are the variables in their communities. But what ties us all together is that we're really focused on how do we improve people's lives, especially by looking at the areas of education, financial stability, and health, and the intersection of those three things, and how services and programs need to work better together to help people, reach their full potential. I've been in my role for about a year and a half. Previously, I actually led a local United Way. I led the United Way in Tampa, Florida, and I also led the United Way in Portland, Maine. So have some diverse experience in leading in the United States.
Well, and Alicia, tell us a little bit about your role and responsibilities at the United Way.
Well, I'm very fond of saying that I've got the best job at United Way. I get to work with United Ways all over the world on the issues that their communities want them to work on. So I help them design strategies or different ways for them to work with the private sector, the public sector, and nonprofit community residents to identify and lift up what are the most pressing issues going on in their community, and what can they do together to really take those issues on. So in my opinion, that's the best job at United Way. My background, I've been at United Way for about 5 years. My background is in public health. And so improving the well-being of communities has been my passion my entire adult life. So that's me.
That's incredible. And I think actually, from an outsider's perspective, knowing the work that you do, I think you both have the greatest job at the United Way, because changing the world is not easy. It's certainly not easy. And as I like to say, if it were, someone would have done it a long time ago. And at this point, the United Way is leading. You're leading on so many different levels. You have the uncanny ability as an organization, thanks to your leadership and the incredible team that's been built, to see around corners. That's a commonality of the folks that we interview at IdeaGen, is they're able to think through eventualities. For example, partnerships. The partnerships, United Way is a leader. We have seen it time and time again on understanding that no one organization can do it on their own. And my gosh, is it remarkable to see how committed you are, how committed you've been to partnerships, and why today you are able to not only survive but thrive in what is a unprecedented global calamity with the global pandemic. who would have thought a few short months ago in January that today we would be sitting in a world that's so forever changed, perhaps in many ways. And again, that ability is critical. And as we look at the planet, we think about those 17 global goals of the United Nations, which were unanimously agreed to by all 193 member states to say, including the United States of America, to say we need to address these critical goals to address disparities, to address and eradicate hunger, to eradicate poverty, and ultimately through goal 17, to create global partnerships, which you all are doing as well, to achieve these goals. And so as we're looking at achieving goal number 5, gender equality of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, what sort of work are you doing at the United Way to help with achievement of this goal?
George, I'll share one example, and then I know Alicia has another still very, very important example. One of our significant initiatives that is pervasive around the country is what we call Women United, and it's our efforts to bring together women to advocate for women. And we have Women United groups in over 165 communities, which actually touches 6 countries. And we have over 70,000 women who are part of these groups. And their goal is to focus on issues that are relevant to women and their families in their communities. So they're great advocates, they're ambassadors for us. They support our work and the work in their communities with their time and their treasure, and they have had some incredible impact. And they focus on what they think is most important to improve the lives of women and children in their communities. A couple examples: Women United in Milwaukee chose to focus on reducing teen pregnancy. Milwaukee had very high teen pregnancy rates, and over a period of dedicated commitment from this Women United group over 10 years, they reduced teen pregnancy by 50%. Not only do they work locally, they're also great advocates with state decision makers. They do lots of advocacy in their state legislative bodies. Another example is in the Bay Area in San Francisco. That Women United group is really focused on women's economic stability. And so they have adopted some community-based resource centers where, again, they volunteer and they make donations and really help women get all the supports they need to be financially stable. And then the last area that we see our Women United groups be very, very active is around early learning for children, and making sure that families have access to quality early learning environments for their kids, because we know that that is the ticket to being successful in school and ultimately has great impact on economic stability. So it's just this powerful group of women who want and care deeply about the well-being of all women, and so they're giving themselves to try to make that happen. It's one of our, for me, it's a very inspiring initiative. We actually tomorrow have we're having a national event to celebrate the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote, and we're doing a national event with our Women United from around the country to come and celebrate that, but also to acknowledge the challenges that are still ahead of us for women. So that's one example, and I know Alicia would love to talk about some of the work we've done in regards to ending human trafficking.
Right. So about 5 years ago, we established the Center for Human Trafficking at United Way. And the reason that we saw and understood and decided to really take on this particular issue is because we could see how communities in different parts of the world were being deeply affected by human trafficking. And by that, to be clear, we mean labor and sex trafficking as well. So we look at the entire issue in a very comprehensive way. What we did see in the United States is that it is a problem that largely goes unnoticed and is often viewed as something that happens in another part of the world. And so we took the issue on as a challenge, and the center really works with the private sector, with business leaders, with the public sector, especially our federal partners, and with nonprofits. First, to just raise awareness around the issue, and in some respects, understand that this is happening. What does it mean? And how to begin to see the signs of human trafficking. What we were finding is that people who were being trafficked, which by the way, globally has become a bigger industry than drug trafficking, according to our partners at the FBI. So it's a huge, huge problem. But because it's sort of under the radar, what we want to do is raise consciousness and awareness that this is an issue. That's first point. So we've done a lot of work with the business community. We've got some great partners that are understanding and asking questions as they source material from throughout the world on what precautions they can take, what questions they can ask of their subcontractors to both understand and to see if there are any instances of that going on, because they have a very powerful economic role to play. The other thing that we're doing is that we find that young women who are being trafficked often fall between the cracks. So one, they're often criminalized by law enforcement, and we've got to really look at them as victims and survivors, not criminals, because that gets them down different pathways, if you will, as we try to help get them out of this situation. But what we try to do in local communities is to get different nonprofits to ask questions and think about what they can be doing together. I mean, George, you've raised a very profound point that no one partner can do it alone. So while law enforcement has a role, so does the nonprofit community, so do schools and school districts around support, around helping young people leave or emerge out of that situation and put them on the right pathway. And so we've been doing a lot of work here in the US. UPS has been a great partner. They've been supporting efforts, not only training their own workforce, so they're one of the biggest logistics companies in the world. And so often their frontline workers might be the first people to see and suspect that there's something may be going on. And so there's been a lot of training for the UPS folks. And then we've been working with nonprofits throughout the country to get them to understand what the signs are around human trafficking. And then globally, working with our international global partners around a role that we might be able to play. So I think our biggest play in this is that, you know, United Way's got a big brand, and for us to come in and talk about human trafficking might take some people aback and say, well, wait, what are you doing? Why are you working on this? But come to understand that it can have such a profound impact on local communities and local folk that it totally makes sense for us to be in this space. And so we're really pleased to be able to do this work in partnership with so many entities throughout the world.
And such profound insights, Alicia and Suzanne. And you know, it's important to see, as we look at this, how the United Way, how you both personally and professionally are really looking at really creating that impact, and how you've developed that impact, and perhaps most importantly, how you're going to do that in the future as well, and inspire others. And on the note of inspiring others, as you both know, IdeaGen has been at the forefront of trying to highlight the importance of empowering not only women, but girls across the planet. We've hosted summits each year at the United Nations. This October 8th, we are hosting this Empowering Women and Girls dialogue. And I'd like to ask you both, you're both successful. You're working in what are the two greatest jobs at the United Way, as you've mentioned. Alicia being, you know, leading up Impact, Suzanne leading up the presidency of US United Way. How and what bit of advice would you provide to young girls that would like to follow in your footsteps?
I When I've been asked this question before, and there were actually two things that I would offer and offer as advice, just based on my personal and professional experience. The first is, I think, it really geared towards young women, and that is learn how to be alone without being lonely. I think, especially in this day and age with so much social media, I don't think young people take enough time just to spend with their own thoughts. And the reason I say that is because I think when you learn to be alone without feeling lonely, you learn to appreciate you learn to appreciate yourself. And what I've said to my daughter on multiple occasions, she's soon to turn 18, is, I will always be here to love you and support you, but really at the end of the day, you are the only one you will always be able to count on to be with you. And so I think that getting to know yourself and love yourself is just hugely important. And the second is a little more, that's maybe a little existential, but the other is a little more practical, and that is through all stages of your life, look and find mentors, whether they are formal mentors or informal mentors. Someone who, and don't be afraid to ask someone to be your mentor. Through my career, I have had many, not many, but many of the women who have worked with me have come to me and said, would you consider mentoring me? And I have tried to say yes every single time, because it's good to have someone just to check in with. And I will tell you that even now, as I'm in the later stages of my career, I still have mentors, and I still look for mentors, because I think there's always an opportunity to continue to learn and grow. And when I see a woman that I admire or think has done something incredible, I seek her out and try to find ways to spend time to learn and gather her wisdom and bring it into my own experience. So those would be my two offerings.
Yeah, I would add to that. Those were good ones, Suzanne. You sort of took my vote. But I would say just to recognize your own power and not just give it away for something that's short term. And I think the biggest piece is your own self-esteem, and to let others define yourself, who you are, rather than you, is something that you don't want to do. You want to hold on to the power that you have to name who you are, and who you want to be, and not let someone else name that for you. You can have a lot of people weigh in, but at the end of the day, you have that power to do that. I would say the other piece around that is the work hard. My mom immigrated. Both my parents worked really hard in the U.S. to create a phenomenal life for us, and not named by money, but by support and unwavering support. And sometimes I didn't want that support, and sometimes I fought that support, but they've always been there. And I've got a 14-year-old daughter now, and hard work is something that was instilled in me by my parents, and something that I really push on my kids, no matter what it is. It's just giving your best effort so that you don't have to reflect back and say, if I just done this. So, both my kids are into sports, and I say, just leave it all out on the field, win or lose, leave it all out on the field, and be the best teammate that you can be. So those would be the things that I would offer up.
Such profound advice, and advice that young women across the world can benefit from based on your incredible experience, but most importantly, your success. And so lessons learned. I think that's absolutely vital. And with this global situation that we are in, how do you feel, both of you? How do both of you feel this situation has impacted our progress toward achieving these global goals? Alicia?
I have to admit, I think we all have to admit that the pandemic really knocked us off our feet, especially in the beginning, because it wasn't entirely clear what the implications would be. What it has shown us is the extraordinary disparities around the haves and have-nots globally in this, and has added, I think, fuel to a lot of the social unrest that we're seeing, especially in the US, but in other parts of the world as well. I think in this, we've also seen other opportunities, but we've got to get through some barriers. So as we think at United Way, how might we reimagine our communities in a COVID and post-COVID world? What can we do with technology to help bring us together in ways that we've not seen before? And how can we begin to organize ourselves and become community organized in the virtual space? How do we begin to think about issues like the digital divide? And so I see us having gotten up on our feet and taking our positions again in trying to support communities. And we have to do it differently. And that's been a learning experience. It is a hard one, like sometimes not taking myself off mute when I need to. But it's been a powerful experience, and it's created, actually, interestingly enough, some space for us to think about reimagining our present and what our future could look like in a post-pandemic world. Starting with even health systems. How do we rethink the delivery of health and well-being, and what does that mean in communities, in poor communities, and in other types of communities? And so we've got still a lot to learn, and it's been powerful, and I think we're even now starting to do some really good things.
Yeah, what I would add, and I love how Alicia talks about our work. Alicia, I'm so glad you're able to join in this conversation. To agree with Alicia, I mean, I think that the exposure of the disparities is, and then, that was already in COVID, and then all of the social unrest that we've witnessed in our country, as well as sort of a second pandemic. I think as challenging and awful and tragic as these last 6 months have felt, I really do think they've put us in a place, each of us individually, in our communities, in our countries, and across the globe, in a place where we can't ignore the reality of those stark disparities. And I am hopeful that that will give us even more energy to focus on the 17 SDGs. I think it's also helped illuminate the interconnectedness of the challenges that individuals face around the globe, that it's not just one, it's one connected to multiple other issues. And we have to think about how do we holistically and systemically focus on that whole. I think the other thing for me, what I think a lot about right now is, and I think all of us thought, okay, well, when the pandemic started, it's going to be 2 months or 3 months, and then it was 4 months, and we keep waiting, and we'll get back to that work once we're through this. I think the realization now is that we're not going to be through this for a long time forward. And so we have to, as Alicia said, find our new footing to be able to get back at the work that was important before COVID, and is even as important or more important than it was before. And the last thing I would say is we have seen a great deal of innovation and creativity from our local United Way networks around the globe, and how they've helped their communities through the COVID response. And again, I think there's an opportunity now. How do we carry forward more of that innovation, that creativity, that use of technology to address these really big issues? I think that's the opportunity before us.
Alicia and Suzanne, what just incredible perspective. I think, and that's what, in order to have what Alicia so brilliantly referred to as the reimagining, in order to be able to reimagine, you need to be able to develop that key empathy. And as I heard in an interview yesterday, and it's striking when you hear it, even though you know it, empathy is not sympathy. And so in order to come up with these solutions, and what I think the United Way does so well is the empathy piece, is you understand and you step into the shoes of the people that you're serving. And that's why you're so successful in your mission, because you're able to do that. That's what we're focused on here. I know that's what you're focused on. And so as you push through, as the United Way continues to push through this incredible time, and by the way, it's not all negative. There is an opportunity to innovate. And the spotlight on these disparities that you both today have so articulately highlighted is important, and actually in some ways powerful, because we know exactly where the problems are. We know where those that need help are today more than yesterday. And so an organization like the United Way is pushing and fighting to get through this global pandemic. How have you done that? How have you kept business as usual while changing the world? Suzanne?
Well, I don't think we can say it's business as usual. I mean, like most businesses, you know, we went all virtual sometime in mid-March. I think we probably have the benefit in that many of our teammates around the world and the country already work remotely. Like our whole team doesn't show up every day in Alexandria and get to work. Alicia is a great example. She lives in Los Angeles, and so a lot of the time she's working from there. But when the whole team went to virtual, it was a new experience for us. And I think the thing that we did really well as an organization is that we were hyper focused on supporting our team members and our network in figuring out how to live in this different new reality. We focused a lot on self-care. Every other Friday, we still have them. We started them right after COVID, and we've continued them because our teammates have said how valuable they've been. We do just an open town hall for any staff. It's not mandatory, on Friday afternoons to come together and just talk about how is it going. Sometimes we have some specific topics that we want to cover, but more than anything, it's been a forum for our teammates to be able to talk about what's been hard and what's been challenging and what's been really sad. And I've been so proud of this is really sincere, empathetic, caring environment that we've been able to create for our staff. I think all of us feel like we've never worked harder in this virtual reality. You know, you get up and you get on a Zoom starting at sometimes 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes you don't end until 7 o'clock at night. And so it's surreal sometimes. So we have just really tried to focus on supporting our teammates to take care of themselves, knowing that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint now, because the work is hard, it's challenging, it's going to continue, and we need our teammates. You know, I talked about self-love, self-care as advice for young women. It's advice for everyone. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be there to be able to take care of others, you know, which is what our mission is. So that's from my perspective.
I would absolutely agree. I think at first the notion was, hey, let's just try to hold on. This should be over soon. And that obviously didn't happen. The kind of space and grace we have to give ourselves is important. I want to underscore, you know, Suzanne has been a phenomenal leader. She is, period, all stop. And in this particular case, has been really good by setting an example and constantly talking to the staff around taking time for ourselves and to have a lot of patience for each other. We're all in different kinds of home situations, you know, small kids, you know, having parents move in and being fearful about what the future holds. And so being really patient, with the dog barking in the background. I mean, almost all of us know each other's family members by now, because some child has come in asking for a peanut butter sandwich, or the dog started barking at, the FedEx driver, whatever those things are. Life interrupts. And so it's been a good reminder that work is not life. Life is life. And so your work is an important piece to that, and how we can create together. So we've been exploring all kinds of different technologies. And to Suzanne's point, we've been bringing together staff on a pretty regular basis, sometimes with like zero agenda, just so that people can see each other in all the little boxes, and laugh or cry over something, or ask really profound questions, or to figure out some kind of Zoom issue. So how do we help each other in this space? I think has been, when you ask that question, George, the words that popped into my mind are grace and spaciousness, in a time that can feel very isolating. But that in and of itself, and the way that Suzanne has led in this space, I think has been incredibly healthy for the staff, and has made us actually even more productive in some ways.
Again, it's just one of those situations that we look at with an organization like the United Way and think about now the best approach. What would the best approach be for achieving these global goals? Alicia?
I would say is to understand that the SDGs are not small boxes, because families don't live in small boxes. Communities aren't in small boxes. That if you actually take a look and stand back from the 17, all these things are interrelated. And so we try at United Way to think about where the intersections are. And sometimes that might land us in spaces that we might not have a history in, like climate change, or other kinds of environmental issues. But because economies and health is so related to these, it brings us to those same tables. And so the act of bringing people together to cross issues and to understand that different organizations or the private sector, they have different, what I always call, what is your superpower? Your superpower may be, you're the hospital, you provide health in a very specific way. Can we pivot and have you do some things differently and work, say, with a women's organization, a domestic violence organization differently? The domestic violence organization's got a superpower, and on and on and on. And so if we keep communities at the center, understand what the intersections are, I think we can all lift up well-beings of communities using the SDGs.
And what I would add to that, and I know Alicia, she and I talk about this, it's that it's always looking for the connections, but it's also, I think, an opportunity, and this is what we're talking about at United Way, is how do we get better at including the voices of lived experience in figuring out how to address multiple problems. How do we get better at listening to those who are struggling with issues that, to us might look like they fit in a specific box or specific boxes, but really how do we listen better and get those who are living the challenges to be part of co-designing the solutions with us.
And that piece is so critical, co-designing the solutions with those that are partners. I think that's one of the key elements of getting to that change the world moment. And with everything that's been happening in the world, what do you all see as the barriers, as the inhibitors in achieving these goals by 2030? And have you seen an acceleration towards achieving them or a deceleration?
Well, I'll start. I think often the barriers are that people get so focused in the now of what they do that they're missing the connections. And to Suzanne's point, if people are coming in, and sometimes, we can be guilty of it, if we come in thinking that we know what's best, we know what the issue is, and we sort of are only on the surface having conversations with residents, we're not going to get to achieving these particular goals. And so it's being conscious about what our own biases are about what works, and being super curious about what the possibility is opens up a lot of space. And so I think that's the work that we're trying to do with United Ways now, is to get them to be super curious, and bringing people with lived experience into the middle of problem solving.
Yeah, and George, I'm not sure if I know the answer as to whether the work is accelerating or decelerating. What I think about is I think there are some real learnings from COVID that could accelerate. Again, the fact that we're recognizing, as you said, where the disparities really are. We've had lots of non-traditional partnerships develop in response to COVID in really unique and innovative ways. So I think the opportunity is, how do we keep those going? How do we aim those at accelerating progress against the SDGs? I think what we have to watch for, and I think just be, just super cognizant of, is I think everyone's feeling really tired right now. COVID, it's been hard, and there could be, a tendency to once we kind of feel like we're through it, to say like, oh, I can't deal with it anymore. So I think we've got to keep the stamina up and continue to focus on everything that we've learned. And if anything, some of the issues have gotten more severe. So it's how do we continue to rally our partners across sectors to continue to be a part of this, so that we can make progress by 2030.
That's right. And rallying your partners is part of what you just alluded to, which is that cross-sector collaboration piece that we espouse. I mean, we believe in cross-sector. We know the United Way believes in cross-sector collaboration. And when you combine that with innovation, you end up with something looking like dynamic resiliency, which I like to talk about a lot. And so how is the mix, the combination of cross-sector collaboration and infusing innovation so vital to helping addressing the world's most vexing issues? And then how do you both infuse that into your daily mission to achieve your goals?
Well, I think it's been one of our key learnings. I mean, prior to COVID, we were already really trying to emphasize with our United Ways around the country the need to be more innovative, to make better use of technology in terms of in order to engage and include people in the work. And again, the pandemic has proven that strategy is an imperative now. It's no longer a nice to do, it's a must do. And so I think for us, a lot of our focus is going to continue to be on helping support all of our network in embracing that mindset of I've got to be innovative. I've got to try to get a couple steps ahead of, into the future, to have a growth mindset, but also to move away from just thinking like the regular ways of engaging people, both in supporting the work, but also doing the work to improve communities, that it can only be done in person. We've got to get smarter around use of technology, innovation, and